So they're like doing Bluetooth. Just put it down, and then it should go back. Okay, mine's back green. How's that? There you go. Should Sweet. All right, cool. All right, guys. We are back for another episode of Let's Talk Snowboarding, presented by Mountain Vibes, and we are in a different setting today. We're here at the Ski Shack in HAYDEN, Idaho, a local staple up here, and we have the manager, and Ski Shack is family owned. We have Rhen Lyden here today. Rhen, how are we doing?
Doing good. Yeah,
Great.
doing real good.
Awesome, man. That's great to hear. So, full disclosure, Rhen and I recorded a full episode handful of weeks ago, and technology and human error on my part, I went ahead and deleted all the files off of my computer accidentally. But we're
Round
back,
two.
and we're back and better than ever. So I think it's going to be a good thing.
Yeah.
Awesome. So Rhen, you grew up here in HAYDEN, Idaho. Let's talk a little bit about maybe let's just start off with, the history of the Ski Shack and, how you guys started out and how it's been in the family for so long.
Yeah. My grandmother, Rhen Lyden, she started this place in 1976 is when she, I believe, got the business license. It was maybe a few years before that where she was kind of dabbling and selling some stuff out of the side of my grandfather had the barber shop that was up in the front of the store here. So he was a local barber. She started kind of selling she was a seamstress. So she was doing some coats and some gaiters that would go over your boots, some stuff like that. And then she, I believe it was right around 76, got a line on some used skis from, I think it was Crystal Mountain over by Seattle.
Okay.
So she went over there, bought a bunch of used skis, came back over here and started renting them to people and selling them to people and just kind of went from there. She always wanted to have a business that she could run in the wintertime so she could have her summers off, basically to go to Hawaii every summer. She took a trip to Hawaii in the early 70s and loved it. And that became her goal to go back every year, have some summers, have the summer off. So yeah, she kind of just fell into a ski shop. Kind of. She was a woodworker. She still is. She builds a lot of really cool stuff out of wood. So I think it was second nature for her to just start drilling skis and mounting skis. And so as far as I know, she was the first ski tech, shop tech in the area, definitely in North Idaho.
Yeah. Nice. And so is she heading back to Hawaii here soon? Is she going?
I believe she is there now, actually.
Okay.
I think
Which island
she just
is she
left.
at?
I don't know which one she's at this year.
Okay.
She bounces around to all of them.
Very cool.
Every year she might hit 2 or 3 of them in a year.
Wow.
She'll stay over there for 3 or 4 weeks, and yeah.
Well earned.
Yep.
Definitely.
She put her time in for sure.
Very cool. So, when was like your first, what age were you when you were, started like chipping in here and kind of hanging out?
I was running around here when I was like a really little kid, 10 years old or so, 12. Me and my cousins and brothers, we were catching rides up to the mountains on the ski bus. Used to pick up here in our parking lot. I don't remember the company's name, but it was a shuttle company that would take kids up to Lookout and Schweitzer. I think it might have been like Saturday going to Schweitzer and Sundays going to Lookout, something like that. But we'd get dropped off afterwards here and then come in here and kind of help out in the back shop for a couple of hours before our parents would come and pick us up, we'd hang around back there and help put stuff away, help wax skis and snowboards. And so, yeah, pretty young age, I was running around in here.
Okay.
And then started working here more when I was a teenager, probably 15, 16. Started helping with like the big sales that we do, like the Labor Day sale, where they would need more help. I'd get out there and kind of just learn how to sell snowboards, go out there and figure it out and pretend I knew what I was talking about and tell people about snowboards. Then just learned a lot about it from being around it.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Jess is producing today. What was so you grew up here, right? No, you didn't grow up here. So did you, when you like first time you came up here, did you ever like pop in here to the ski shack or anything? And what was the first time you came?
No, the first time that I came in here was right before the Dougie Fresh event, and I came in asking if I could film for it. So
Right.
that was my first time ever coming in. And then I came in and filmed for the Jam for Cans. Jesse, we helped film Jesse.
Right.
Just promoting Ski Shack because you
Right.
guys were the judges for it, and so I was just here showing that hey, like they're helping with Jam for Cans and put a video up on Jam for Cans. So this is my third time in this shack. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah.
You can't tell with the video, but it's a shack on the outside, and it's really long inside.
Yeah. It reminds me a lot of like my old, my local ski shop, Rogue Ski Shop down in Medford, Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
Very, cool, cozy cabin vibes, like super awesome, super cool people working. Has that old school ski snowboard feel, which is what I love about it. Yeah. So, going off, shout out to Jess, producing today. We're trying to get some higher production value on the podcast, and I think we're well on our way. But let's talk about so you rode the ski bus up. I did the same thing growing up. What was you said you went up to Lookout, did a lot of silver, and let's talk about like kind of your transition into. We talked about last time we talked is you moved down to Tahoe for a while. What drove that decision, and kind of take us through when you did that and kind of how it like progressed your snowboarding being down there.
Yeah, right after high school, I moved down there. Me and 4 other guys from here. There was some friends of ours that were older that had moved down there. Guys that were 3, 4, 5 years older than us, that were kind of the snowboard crew that was really good from Schweitzer. Those guys had moved down after they graduated high school. So it was kind of the thing to do. There was quite a few guys from around here that were in the ski snowboard world, and they were heading down there to progress their skills, chase the dream of pro skiing or pro snowboarding. So it was kind of just the place to be in the mid 2000s, and really kind of still is a mecca area for snowboarding. So yeah, graduated high school, and that was the plan, just to get down there and snowboard every day. And that's what we did. We just piled into a small little house and had like a few of us piled up in each room, and to make the rent as cheap as possible. And we were snowboarding every day and working during the night, and had some really good winters. We had a bunch of snow those few winters, so it was fun. It was a good time. We were riding at Sierra mostly, a lot of Heavenly. We'd go up to North Star. But yeah, Tahoe's a fun place, and there's a ton of young snowboarders there, guys in their 20s that are pushing the sport for sure.
Yeah, to this day, you got some greats coming out of there like Danny Davis,
right?
Jamie Anderson, to name, some of the old school. Sean Palmer was up at Tahoe all the time. So like during that time frame, you kind of progressed and stuff. Like, so who's like your favorite rider down there at the time you were hanging out?
Oh man, there was some pro riders that were down there that you would see every now and then, which was kind of cool. Like Travis Parker, he was down there. He lived right down the road from a friend of mine, so you'd see him every now and then. Jamie Anderson, like you mentioned, you'd see her cruising around, and that was kind of in her prime. I think she had just won the X Games and all that, so you'd see some of those pro riders around, which was pretty cool. And then there was like the semi-pro guys that were, you know, just right above you, but they weren't quite pro, so we'd ride with those guys quite a bit, and that was fun. But yeah, I mean, there was just so many guys to look up to as far as skill level went. You know, coming from here, it was kind of like being like a medium-sized fish in a small pond, and then you go down there and you're small fish in a big pond.
Yeah.
And everybody is really good. So yeah, we were just getting better and better, riding every day and working on. It was a lot of train park stuff. We were young, so we wanted to slide rails and hit big jumps.
Yeah.
And do that kind of stuff. When it would snow, we'd ride powder, but we were right back in the park pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, all young guns, that's what they want to do is
Right.
steal powder jumps, steal powder jumps. I
Right.
mean, that's super awesome. What kind of work were you doing down there? You know, we all have to make the money to be able to go shred. What were you holding down?
So the first year I went down, we went to a job fair. Me and my roommates, buddies from here, we went up to a job fair at Sierra at Tahoe, one of the resorts. And everybody was piling up to like be a lifty or food and beverage or whatever, different resort jobs up there. And there was a friend of ours who turned us on to the idea a couple days beforehand. He said, get the night janitor job. You work at night, you can snowboard every day. It's the best job up there. So me and my friend Mike Dorsch, we walked over to the janitor guy sitting at his table by himself. You know, he had nobody lined up to, sign his papers. So we cruised right up and told him we wanted to do the nighttime janitor, and he so that was it. We would work from I think 4 o'clock to midnight. So we would clock in right after we get done riding all day. We'd clock in, kind of hang around. Everybody would leave, and then we would vacuum the place up and put the tables up or chairs up, and that was it. It was a pretty cool job. We'd take the trash out. They gave us a truck, so we were just rallying this truck around in the parking lot and pulling each other on our snowboards, and yeah, just having a great time up at the resort by ourselves all night long.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was one other person up there, the security guard.
Okay.
And he was a super cool dude, so he didn't mind if he saw the truck spinning
Yeah.
Brodies in the parking lot.
Yeah. There's nobody really in the village at night. You know,
Right.
most of them are out, on the cats and stuff on the
Right.
hill.
And that place doesn't have like the restaurants and the bars and the hotels and the village, really. It's kind of that smaller vibe, like Lookout,
Yeah.
where it's the lodge in the parking lot, and then once it's done, everyone heads out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's interesting. You talk about that, like, we got Schweitzer up here. Schweitzer's the big resort with, all the big village with the condos and just littering the side of the hill. And then, there's Silver. Take the gondola, go to Lookout on the border, Super Family in 49 in Mount Spokane. I mean, it's just so much to do up here. And
right.
yeah, like talking about it, like everywhere's different, and so like it's cool that you got to go down there and experience that down at Tahoe.
Yep, it was a great time.
Yeah, for sure, man. When was it that you came back up this way?
It would have been probably the winter of 2008
Okay.
or so. Would have been my first winter back here, kind of after high school, full time back here. And yeah, got back into riding Schweitzer a bunch, working in here. Actually was working up on the North Slope, got an oil field job up there. So I was kind of 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off, flying back and forth. So I'd help out in here a little bit when I was home, during busy times, maybe help tune some skis and boards. but wasn't quite working here full time until probably 2010
Okay.
or so, right in there.
Nice.
Pause real quick, right?
Okay.
Here, right? This
Cut
is
it.
a good spot. Well, so this is turned off. So I noticed the red light isn't blinking anymore. I turned it off and turned it back on, but it's not turning on. Do you have an extra battery for
Oh,
this
yeah.
guy? Great.
Yeah. All
Do
right.
you want me to pause this too for you? You only have 54 minutes total recording. And this one's recording through the USB mic. Cool.
Cool.
Alright, so carry on. You came back in 2024 it was? Or 2014, 2010. Wow, 2010 when you came back?
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably
Cool.
would have been that winter of probably 09, 10
Okay.
that I was back in here more full time. Yeah, and it was fun. I mean, it was a familiar spot to come back, and I was living downtown with some friends and snowboarding as much as I could, working in here like 3-4 days a week. But I wasn't managing the place. It was, some other guys had more of the responsibility. So if it was a powder day, I was like calling in sick and
Yeah.
heading up there, and
Could you
all the guys.
do your mic a little bit closer?
Yep.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I mean, all the guys
There we go.
that were here managing the place, they knew that I was just the young snowboard rat that wanted to ride all the time. So if it was, a good pow day, I was gone and riding. And and then I kind of slowly took over the reins as some of the older guys that were already here, they kind of moved on to other jobs. Lyle, one of the old guys that was here forever, he kind of just retired. Doug kind of moved on to another spot.
Yep.
Matt Lamberth was another guy who was a big influence and showed me a lot of things as far as tuning skis and snowboards and selling stuff. He was kind of managing back when I first came around, and he moved on to selling boats. He's still here selling boats. So I kind of just progressed into the management role a little bit, and kind of have been doing it now ever since. Every winter we go from September when we open up into mid-April when the mountains close, and we just do skis and snowboards.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's great, since the time I moved here about 7 years ago. It seems like, there were some tough times like right before then, definitely in our industry, but now it's starting to kind of grow again. Have you kind of seen that in, your yearly production?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen all the kind of ups and downs with the industry over the last 30 years. I guess myself more the last like 15 or so. But we had some tough years. It helps that Grandma has owned this building and this piece of property for a long time. She bought it back in the day when it was affordable, and she's owned it ever since. And so that helps a lot on a bad year like 08, 09, those years there wasn't a ton of snow coupled with the recession going on. So we had a couple bad years in there, but so it helped a lot that we owned the building and we didn't have a huge overhead payment there. And then, things really turned around, a handful of years later when Coeur d'Alene was now just this really booming area. COVID even really accelerated that tenfold probably. When everybody wanted out of the cities and into the small towns, Coeur d'Alene was arguably the fastest growing ski and snowboard town in the country.
Yeah.
I would say where maybe we weren't even a ski and snowboard town 8 years ago, we definitely are now. Now Schweitzer's on the map. They've been bought by Altera, or one of these big ski resort companies.
On places like Mammoth and
right,
we're at a lot of different places you could name that you've probably heard of, and now.
Right. yeah, where you can get like the Epic Pass or one of these big passes that include a ton of mountains. So that brings people to the area, and people are moving here for the lakes and the golf courses and stuff in the summer. And there's 5 ski resorts here,
Mm-hmm.
in the winter. So the town's growing super quick, and it's been great for business,
Yeah,
really.
it really has. I mean, I've worked up at Schweitzer the last 5 seasons and as a snowboard instructor, and you can see it each year. There's just more
Yeah.
lessons, more lessons, more lessons, more people. And it's great for this area because I feel like a lot of people that are moving here, most of them still have the values that, existed here back in the day, when you were growing up, where you can feel fairly safe, like letting your kids, you know, ride their bikes to school or walk to school or hang out
Right.
in the street. And yeah, it's pretty awesome to see this place, kind of really come into itself, blossoming more and more. I actually talked with your sister about this.
Hmm.
So funny story. Ren's sister is one of the owners, her and her husband, of Fine Brood downtown, where we also record episodes.
Yep, down on
So,
Sherman.
yep. So it's pretty awesome to be a part of this community up here, and you've been so kind to let us record here,
Yeah.
and so have Nick and your sister. What's your sister's name again?
Danny.
Danny. Nick and
Yep.
Danny. I mean, thank you so much. But yeah, let's talk a little bit more about, like, you guys, family has like some small businesses up here, and you mentioned the fact that this place is growing and you're seeing that it's benefiting, but there's also some drawbacks and stuff like that,
Yeah.
with just how busy it's become and everything. But as far as that goes, like, what are some of the changes that you've seen in this area, as far as like from when you were growing up, you went to Tahoe, came back? How much had it changed, like, in that short time that you were gone?
Well, it didn't seem like it changed a ton in those few years
Okay.
back then. I mean, maybe, yeah, when you would come back to town, if you weren't here for a year, there might be a new store that popped up or something like that. New restaurant on some corner, a couple new buildings, maybe. But I mean, really, the last 6, 7 years or so, and even more so in the last 3, it's now you like drive down the road and you're like, oh, there's a whole new neighborhood right there,
Right.
or a entire apartment complex that wasn't there a couple months ago, and you took a different way to pick up your kid, and you're like, oh man, there's a new apartment complex going in. So now it's definitely noticing it more in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot more people coming.
Yeah.
Um, but as far as like the differences from when I was growing up to now, like on the ski resorts, on the local ski hills,
Mm-hmm.
the lift lines. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
obvious thing. Um, Schweitzer feels a lot more like a corporation run mountain than
Yeah.
it used to.
Right.
I mean, it had a lot of that really local feel back then, back in the early 2000s. You'd see the same guys up there all the time. The weekends were busier than the weekdays, but it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
crazy. There wasn't as many high-speed quads. There wasn't nearly as many condos. There wasn't the hotels and all that stuff. um, yeah, there's just a couple bars and restaurants, few condos. I mean, a decent handful of condos, but yeah, it was a lot more low key than it is now.
Yeah.
Um, and the other resorts are a little bit busier too, for sure.
Right.
Silver has that new water park and that whole new village going on down at the bottom, down at the base area. They didn't used to have all of that. Lookout has now expanded. They've had an expansion in the works for seems like 20 years, but it's been at least 10 that they've been working on expanding, and they finally did that, and it's been awesome
Mm-hmm.
to expand some terrain. So yeah, it's changed, but in some cases, I would not necessarily say for the better, but like Lookout expanding and giving us more terrain back in that area. That's awesome. So hopefully we start seeing just more and more terrain expansions is what I'd like to see, and not necessarily more condos and stuff being built on the sides of the mountains.
Yeah.
But more chairlifts and more runs.
Right.
I'll take those all day.
Yeah. And it seems like everyone's kind of up in their game as it gets, more and more populated. You need to. But they are all awesome in their own regard. Jess, what's your favorite mountain up here?
Schweitzer.
All right.
I mean, just because of the people there, but for me, it just built up to that at the end of the year, and there was just that whole park area just being so easily lappable.
Right.
Is really cool. So I like that aspect of it. It's
Yeah.
just cool. But I've been to all of them, and I like all of them for different reasons.
Right.
So
Right.
49 degrees north, if it was closer, I'd probably hit that one the most.
Yeah.
But because it's not close, then there's just not as many people. So that's kind of why it is fun to go hit. But yeah, they're all really, really cool.
Yeah.
The gondola is silver. That's unique.
It's always fun just go up it in the summer too for a little scenic gondola ride. Always fun with the kids and stuff.
Yeah. The thing I love about the gondola, I don't even know if I should let the secret out, but what's so cool about that is almost every ski resort you go to, everybody pulls in at 7:30, 8 o'clock. Parking lots are filling up. People are coming into the village. They're stacking up the lift lines, waiting for the lifts to turn on. They turn the lifts on. There might be 5 lifts that take people up to the top of the mountain, and then they all hit the snow and they, chew up all the powder. Where, a decent powder day at Silver, say it just snowed 8 inches, as long as you're there at 7:30, fairly kind of early, you hop in one of those first few gondolas. You get up there, you got to get on the gondola before that line starts to build up.
Yeah.
If you show up at 9:30, then you're out of luck.
Right.
You're waiting in that line for an hour or more. But get in there, have your coffee, waiting in the line for them to let you on the gondola. You get in one of those first few gondolas, get up there, and now you have like 3 hours of like a private powder mountain before that place can even be busy, because only 4 people at a time can show up to the mountain.
Yeah.
So it's just 4 people getting off the gondola. So you have from like 9 to 11:30 of just riding powder lap after powder lap after powder lap. And then you're like, well, now there's some people here. I'll just go home.
Yeah.
Or have some lunch and take it easy the rest of the day. But you can get 10 solid runs before it feels like there's anybody else there.
Yeah.
And that could be the busiest week of the year. That could be the week between Christmas and New Year's, when there is everybody and their cousins are out skiing, and you can have a private powder sesh for 2.5, 3 hours at Silver.
Yeah.
Which is pretty rad.
Yeah. Yeah. As these places get more and more crowded, that split board's calling my name more and more, it seems like. How much have you've kind of gotten into the back country quite a bit up here. What's that experience like up here? Because, we see it coming out of many different areas, but we're kind of still under the radar as far as that go. But I've heard that there's great terrain, throughout the Panhandle.
There's an insane amount of untouched mountains. There's so many peaks around here that have probably never been skied. As far as like the trailheads and things like that, they're not crazy busy. I haven't done a ton of split boarding in Oregon and Washington, a little bit in Montana, but yeah, I know when I go out with guys that are from there, like friends from Oregon or Washington area, they're pretty blown away by getting out there and not seeing anybody else.
Right.
There might be another 2, 3, 4 trucks at the trailhead, and you might see one of those groups of people when you're out there. You might come across them on the skin trail, say what's up for a minute, but that's about it.
Yeah.
You're not looking at people just skiing all over and hiking all around. You're out there by yourself with your buddies that you went out there with.
Yeah.
So that's nice I mean, and that's why I'm going there. I don't want to go hike around in the woods with a bunch of other people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's kind of the whole idea, is to get out in the woods and experience the place, you know, in the peace and quiet with your buddies.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's a ton of terrain around here. There's terrain that you can access off of the side of the ski resorts. You know, Silver, Lookout, and Schweitzer all have pretty good
Yeah.
side country
Right.
terrain that where you can take the lift up and then split board from there and hit some good zones and then get back into the mountain. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of trailheads that you can drive to and tour, you know, from the trailhead, and then there's a handful of spots that are decent sled access where you can sled in,
Yeah.
take the snowmobiles in and cruise back on the cat tracks and get back into some mountain lake areas. And yeah, there's just a lot. You know, the community's growing, I would say, just like we were talking about the ski resorts getting busier and busier. There's more and more people showing interest. We sell more split boards than we ever have, but it's still not very many.
Okay.
It's a few a
Yeah.
year. Yeah, I would say around 5, not hundreds.
Sometimes it seems like the splitboard community almost prefers like to go online and like really dive in. Like if you're that serious,
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like they are gonna look at every single thing and pick
Yeah.
exactly what they want, you know. So it's tough.
Yep, that is true, because your split boarder customer is not your first time snowboard buyer. You know,
No.
he's been buying snowboards for 20 years. So he knows he can get last year's snowboard online or at a shop or something like that. He knows he can get it for cheaper. Brand new, he can probably get it for 30% cheaper if it's last year's board. But what a lot of these split board companies do, I mean, there's some that don't, but what a lot of them do is try not to overbuild them. You know, that can definitely be a problem and that goes for solid boards or skis or whatever, probably in any industry, is when a company or a brand decides that they want to get greedy and build a whole bunch of boards. We're going to build this many 100,000 boards because we want to sell them all. Well, they only sell half of those things at full price, and the other half go on the discount market. You know, in February, March, at the end of each season, you know, the companies allow you to start selling the stuff at a discount so you can, you know, make room to get the new stuff in. But if there's way too much and the market's flooded, and then now all of a sudden there's this many last year's boards online, now next year none of the new boards sell, and then it's a vicious cycle of there being too much last year's inventory online or on the market. So a lot of the split board companies are pretty good at that. Like, okay, we're not going to overbuild these things. Let's just try to build enough so that our retailers and our partners can sell these things and make some money off of them.
Okay.
Jones does a pretty good job, you know, at that. You know, a shop like us or even Evo, the biggest online dealer out there, is going to put their orders in and say, we want this much stuff. And then they're going to build that amount of stuff and then maybe a little bit more, maybe 5% more or 10% more, but not 60% more to try to, you know, sell it all. So
cool. Yeah, that yeah, when last time we talked, you know, it's a fascinating subject because like the whole industry side of everything is so cool. And you go down to when was your first, you know, trade show that you went to?
Probably 2015.
Okay.
No, it would have been before that, probably 2012 or so.
Okay.
So it would have been one of my first few years here, when I was here full time. Yeah, I started going down to SIA, which is Snow Sports Industries America. At that point, it was happening in Denver, Colorado.
Okay.
We'd go down there and check out all next year's gear. All the new skis, the new snowboards, boots, bindings. My Aunt Julie, who does all the soft goods stuff, she would come down, look at all the jackets, pants. My grandma back then, she was still coming down. So there'd be 4 or 5 of us from the shop that would go down there and look at all next year's stuff and kind of figure out what we wanted to buy and bring in for the next season. And they're fun. It was a lot of fun. Those first handful, for one, I was in my early to mid 20s, so we were having a great time. It's a big party. All the snowboard brands are throwing huge parties.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny when you go into a big ski snowboard convention like that. It's at the Denver Convention Center, this massive convention center. So it's this huge room, and every brand has their little booth, but they're pretty extravagant booths, especially the bigger brands like, Burton Snowboards, or, K2 Skis. Some of these bigger brands with more money have these really elaborate, really cool booths, that take them hours and stuff to set up. And, then all their stuff's on display and they take you through and show you everything. But it is kind of segregated. Like, over on this side of the building would be all your snowboard brands. And then over on this side of the building would be all your ski brands.
Okay.
And over on the snowboard side, it's like loud music, parties, kegs, beer, partying. Like, people are partying. And then over on the ski side, it's more like collared shirts, and everybody's got their clipboards out or their PowerPoint stuff or whatever. So it's like a whole different vibe. And I've got to bounce back and forth between each side basically every hour. I've got an appointment with one of my reps.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing skis and then snowboards. And on one side, as I got better at it, I would start to schedule my day where I would see most of the snowboards on one day and see most of the skis on the other day. But it was kind of funny just to see kind of that separation. And then there'd be like some ski brands that would kind of fall in the middle, like Armada skis or Line skis that are kind of the cooler, more youthful, like we're acting like a snowboard brand, but we sell skis. So they would be kind of in the middle.
Freestyle.
The freestyle ski brands would be like in the middle to kind of separate the snowboarders from the skiers.
Gotcha.
Cool. All right, so cut. Yep, this one died again.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to put in a new battery. That one's good.
Sweet. Awesome.
So yeah, you were talking about conventions and.
Oh yeah, conventions. Convention time. Yeah, we were. Yeah, some off-camera stuff. How rowdy it would get. I had a question though. Like, at what point were you going back to the ski side and you were just like a little tipsy?
Yeah, that would happen. That would happen, especially if you knew me in my early 20s. Yeah, sometimes around like 3-4 o'clock, you had a handful of beers, and yeah, you're feeling nice and loose at your last appointment of the day. And yeah, like we were kind of talking a minute ago, some of the brands it was kind of the unspoken rule to not party too hard until, around 5 o'clock and start rolling out the kegs and stuff. But some of the brands would push it and, start like having a live band in your booth at 3 o'clock with like a full on concert going on and people partying their faces off to where like you wouldn't even be able to hear during the meeting that you're, trying to sit there and talk to somebody about Smith goggles. And you have a concert going on like 20 feet away. So yeah, there was a lot of that going on. And then talking with my grandma, we'd go out, for dinner or whatever. Afterwards, we'd be hanging out, and she would be telling us stories of like the good old days, when she first started going to these back in, I guess it would have been the 70s, late 70s and through the 80s when the snowboarders first started to come onto the scene. Because it would have been 77 that Jake Burton started snowboarding or started Burton Snowboards. So then by maybe 8 years later, by 85, they're trying to work their way into to SIA, into this ski convention. So they know all these ski shop owners and buyers and people from around the nation are going to be coming to, back then it was in Vegas. But they know they're all going to be showing up to Vegas to buy next year's skis.
Mm-hmm.
So they start, the snowboarder brand managers and owners, they start showing up right across the street. So they would rent the building right across the street from the ski convention, and go out there and try and get some of these ski buyers and people who own ski shops, try to get them over to their building and get them sold on snowboarding. Back then it was a new sport that in a lot of ski shop owners' eyes, it was probably a fad, something that was just going to come and go, that the young kids are doing. And it wasn't skiing. Skiing was in the Olympics. Skiing had been around for 100 years. So my grandmother got sucked in by these young snowboard guys that they sucked her in, pulled her over to the building and started showing her snowboards. And I think right away she could tell that it wasn't a fad. She could tell that like these kids were so passionate about it that it was gonna catch on.
Yeah,
it was gonna be a sport, and I was there. It was here to stay. So she jumped on the snowboard bandwagon pretty early, in the 80s. And like I said, she wasn't even a skier. She was just kind of grabbed this opportunity to run a winter business. So I think that was probably helpful, maybe, that she wasn't a skier, because there was a lot of animosity towards snowboarders from the skiers in that time. So had she been a skier, she may have never even have, looked towards the snowboard building, and went over and gave those guys a chance. There's probably a good chance of that, because there wasn't a ton of ski shops that were also doing snowboards. Back then, it was a lot of skate shops that would try to do some snowboards in the wintertime. It wasn't so much like an established ski shop was going to all of a sudden put a bunch of snowboards on the floor.
Yeah.
But she did, it wasn't a bunch at first, but it was a handful. And we were selling them. And some of the guys who she had here working for her were, they were young, so they were into, trying the new thing, and let's try this snowboarding stuff out. So she had some guys that were snowboarders that started pushing the sport, and now we sell probably, I don't know, it's about 50-50.
Okay.
Some years it's a few more skis, and some years it's a few more snowboards, but yeah, it's easily half of our business now.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, sometimes you'll have skiers that have skied their whole life, and then some kind of injury will happen, and vice versa. That they're like, oh, I was told to try snowboarding because you use different set of muscles and different joints and everything, kind of, and then they can snowboard.
Yep.
Or somebody could have a catastrophic snowboard injury or something, and then they could go on skis.
Yep.
And it's really, really cool to see like that it is balancing out a little bit, because you can tell that everyone's like, I just want to slide down the hill.
Right. Yeah. It's balanced out, I think, a lot from those early days of, the 80s and 90s, where it was kind of the punk rock snowboarders versus the like old stuck up skier dads. That's definitely gone away now. I mean, now that we've had the time, snowboarding's been here for 40 years now, so we've had plenty of time now. We're seeing a lot. When I was a kid, when I was in high school, middle school, me and all my friends were snowboarding because that was the cool thing to do. It's your parents were skiers, so you wanted to be a snowboarder.
Yeah.
It was the new cool thing. And now we're seeing a lot of kids going back to skiing. I would say in the last handful of years, it seems like more skiers that are in that like 15 to 20-year-old range.
Yeah.
Maybe not more than snowboarders, but definitely a lot more skiers than there was 10 to 15 years ago.
Okay.
For the kids.
Got it.
So I think it's kind of evening out.
Yeah.
We're snowboarding for a while there was kind of took the youth over, and all the kids wanted to do it. You know, now these kids, their dads snowboard, so they're like, dude, I want to ski.
Yeah.
You know, my dad's on the snowboard, man. My dad's an old guy.
Yep. Just yeah, that's funny. That's funny.
So we're seeing the skiing come back a little bit for the youthful kids, but it's probably a pretty 50-50, I would say.
Okay.
Where around here, and most like you've probably noticed up at the ski resorts up at Schweitzer, it's a pretty 50-50 mix.
Yeah.
Might depend on what runs you're on or things like that, but it's a pretty even mix now.
Yeah. And that's what's cool is like a lot of the times snowboarders, they're not going to go on the same runs as skiers just because it's an entirely different discipline. As I found, like, kind of how I look at it is like the skiers for the most part want to go down steep stuff, but sometimes the snowboarders want to get like into a little bit more flow and have some, you know, natural hits and terrains and gullies and things of that nature. I don't know if you've seen that, or, you know, when you've been up there, or...
Yeah, I mean, I think the part of the reason that skiers did not like us to begin with, you know, back in the beginning days, was, you know, the snowboarders were just seeing the mountain differently. They were seeing it as like a giant skate park, you know, or, you know, something like that. The skiers had this mentality of going down the fall line, you know, like you said, down the steep, going straight down. And you know, you've probably seen the pictures and the posters of like a nice powder field, and they've got turns going down one side of it, and then it's like they just go right next to that other line, and they go right next to it, and they're farming the powder. You know, that's they're saving as much of it so that they can do their little tight turns, and they can get as many of them as they can, and they come back up, and you dare not go way out into that
feed well into like Dougie Fresh.
Yeah.
Because then we can talk about like, oh, it's a snowboard being song.
Right.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay, good.
Sweet. All right.
So yeah, the skiers would, you know, farm out that powder field, and that just skiing the mountain in that way develops the moguls, and then then the skiers like to ski the moguls, and the snowboarders came along and started just snowboarding wherever they wanted, and that big powder field was just an open canvas for them to make their big wide turns, their really surfy feeling turns. You know, maybe there's a little cliff over there that they want to jump off of, so they're going to cruise over there and go jump off of that. So just the nature of how their tracks were laid out on the mountain was not cool to the ski guy, to the local skier guy who's been skiing that mountain forever. He's, you know, they're smashing our moguls. They're you know, ruining the moguls.
And we're not, I mean, moguls can be fun, but we're not the biggest fans of moguls.
Right, yeah, and moguls are like the worst nightmare to a snowboarder, really.
Yeah.
You come over that little knoll and you realize you just flew into a
mogul field.
Mogul field, and it's like, that's not fun.
No.
Yeah, that's not fun. So yeah, I think the moguls were the dividing terrain feature.
Right.
That was kind of dividing us, I think, for a long time. And now, you know, grooming has got a lot better. Now they groom a lot more of the mountain in a lot of mountains than they used to. So those moguls are just groomed away anyway. You know, some of your bigger resorts in Colorado and probably Tahoe, and they have like specified mogul runs
Right.
now, where they let the moguls form up big, and now those mogul skier guys can go in there. But our local hills really don't have moguls like you do.
I can name the one run at Schweitzer that's like
Yeah,
it's
they,
like
get bumped
where
out.
ridge and and basin and everything kind of meets
Mm-hmm.
on the right, as looking up on the mountain on the right, skiers left of the run, and they leave that,
Right.
but it's still like that's it, just like a little tiny slice, and everything
Yeah.
else is just kind of wild. So, but yeah, like you talking about that is like the evolution is cool, because at first we were told you guys can't be here.
Right.
Okay. Now, okay, you can go over there and hike, like,
Right.
but you can't get on the lift.
Yep.
And then, finally we started needing to be allowed, but now it's cool is like we're starting to almost have some of our own stuff, like because of the rope toes and things of that nature. Like rope toes are pretty much designed for boarders. I mean, like the skiers can go there too, but the whole rope toe culture started with snowboarding, and that's kind of awesome to see. I've heard that Mount Spokane might be getting a rope toe
Oh yeah.
next
For
year.
one of their train parks.
Yep, next
Cool.
season, which would be super cool.
Yeah.
I think there's a movement for them to do one at Schweitzer somewhere.
They used to have one out in the train park. It was awesome.
Yeah.
We would lap that thing all day long. You'd hit the whole train park. You'd grab the rope toe, and it would zip you right back up.
Yeah,
And yeah, that was awesome. They need to get that back for sure.
yeah. But let's talk about the Dougie Fresh Bank Slalom.
Okay.
And that's a event that you guys put on with as a plethora of other sponsors. Probably it was like the first true bank slalom up here in North Idaho, and now it's part of the Dirks and Derby qualifier. Like, how'd that come to be, and what was the inspiration for the Dougie Fresh?
So there was an employee here, a guy here, Doug Johnson. He worked here for, I want to say, right around 15 years.
Okay.
And he was one of the manager guys when I first came on. I mean, he was working here when I was a little kid, running around in here. So one of my mentors in the industry for sure, showed me a lot. Great guy. I mean, like personally, one of the greatest guys you could ever meet. One of those types of guys, like give his shirt off his back for you type of guy. Really, really good friend, really, really good father, just a really all around really good guy. He passed away, unexpectedly in his sleep, and left behind 4 kids. And I think the oldest at the time, Jalen, was 15 or 16. He was in high school. And then a couple years later, after high school, he started working here. And he's part of our Ski Shack nonprofit team that puts the Dougie Fresh on. So the Dougie Fresh is a bank slalom race that me and a handful of other guys, Evan Hoskinson was one of them. It was kind of his brainchild to get out there and do it. So we did this right after Doug passed as a benefit, memorial benefit, to kind of raise some money for his kids and just, show respect to Doug. So now we just did the 9th year last year. I guess in what a bank slalom race is, it's a snowboard only, like back to your point, we have some of our own stuff. It's a snowboard only race. Baker Bank Slalom over at Mount Baker in Washington is the biggest one in the world. And one of the first, they call it the legendary Baker Bank Slalom, and it might be the first of its kind. But it's a timed banked race. So one guy goes at a time. It's laser timed. You wear a little chip, you drop through the gate, and you run the course as fast as you can all the way to the bottom. And then everybody's times stack up against each other, and fastest guy or gal wins. So yeah, we started 9 years ago. It's a hand dug course. Traditionally, that's kind of what bank slaloms are, is, bust out the shovels and build a course. Some of them now are using some machine pushed corners and some groomer corners. The Dougie Fresh has a couple corners that utilize the Snowcat and the
Yeah.
machine, but a lot of the course is hand dug. Yeah, it's a great event. We've, you know, because I, am here and had close relationships with all of the reps, ski and snowboard reps, mainly the snowboard reps. I was able to reach out to them and get a lot of really good sponsorship as far as prizes, giveaway stuff, raffle stuff. We have a huge purse of gear to give away at that event.
Right.
I mean, an insane amount more than almost any event that you'll go to. Even more so than a lot of the big events that you go to as far as amateur events. It's not the X Games or anything like that. But
Right.
as far as an amateur event, I think last year we gave away 10 snowboards. So, and then just goggles and gloves and bindings and all sorts of gear that we get from all of these reps, from these brands that we carry here at Ski Shack. But a lot of those guys knew Doug. So that was a big part of it too. I mean, when Doug first passed, it was me reaching out to a bunch of his friends and saying, "Hey man, this is what happened and we're going to do this race." So everybody was just on board, tenfold to kind of rally behind Doug and support his family. And then it's just grown since then. I think we had 50 riders that first year, and that was, a lot of guys, a lot of them were Doug's friends, personal friends and personal friends of the shop. And now we're up to having to cap the race at 150 riders because that's about as many as we can push through in a day.
Yeah.
So,
And you guys, it was kind of like, if you're familiar with Silver Mountain, like it's kind of next to the terrain park now. But
right.
when it first started, it was like pretty far out there, right?
Yeah, it was in a run that they call half pipe. And we put it there because it's this natural half pipe. And I guess our thought was we were looking at the Baker Bank Slaloms course, and they run their whole course through like a natural half pipe, in the terrain itself. But their half pipe, their natural kind of gully half pipe is pretty mellow. And we were trying to build it in this steep ditch, like this, 30-foot walls kind of thing, or 25-foot walls, real steep walls, a pretty short transition at the bottom before you're, going up the other side. So it was gnarly. It was some gnarly corners. You had to be a pretty good snowboarder to hold your edge and make it down the whole course.
Okay.
So that was kind of a problem. We wanted it to be open to everybody. Like the 6-year-old kid could hop in there and make it through the course and be able to carry speed, And Silver Mountain wanted to help us with it. Terry Goslin, the guy who runs the terrain park up there, he's been doing it forever up there. He wanted to help with his terrain park crew, but being on the other side of the mountain from the terrain park was a lot harder for him to get his guys there and then back over to the park. So it was a lot easier. Basically, Terry came to us and said, we can give you guys a lot more help as far as man hours and digging hours and cat hours and things like that.
All good.
If you move right next to the terrain park, we can give you a lot more support.
Okay.
So we did, and we like it there. It's a good location for the course.
Yeah, that's awesome. Jess, you went for the first time this season, right?
Yep.
Talk a little bit about that. You did a lot of photography and stuff. Looked sick being out there.
I did do a lot of photography here. I can turn on my Insta360 so you can get a producer's view real quick here.
Oh, that'd be sick. I like that idea.
All right.
And I can, you can talk, and I'm gonna go get my. Guess I'll go get my other battery.
Cool. Yeah, you can figure it out. So, all right. Hi. Yeah, I went to the bank slalom, the Dougie Fresh bank slalom, and it was really cool. I was filming it mostly to get practice of filming a kind of event. This was my first event that I filmed on the mountain.
Right.
So it was cool. So Brad met up with me. Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying there's a lot of a learning curve to filming. I mean, I've never been a film guy, but I've been around them a lot, and it takes a lot to get the shots on the mountain.
Yeah.
In the weather with with
Yeah.
all your gear, and so there's definitely a learning curve there.
Yeah. Well, I guess, okay, sorry. This would have been my second event, but first that I was like trying to actually like sell photos and videos for. So the first one was the Austin Viz Down Bar event at Mount Spokane, but then this one was like the first one at Silver for sure, and the first like that wasn't just in one spot at a rail. It was, you got to move down the mountain.
Right.
So that was really cool. So I got to do that. Brad Compton was the one who, he rode up with me, and then he like took me down the track and like showed me where all the spots are, where everybody was. Was there for the clothing ceremony.
Yep.
Which was cool because as people were waiting, it's right by the terrain park.
Right.
So everyone sees this hip.
Right.
So they just start hiking up, and they're like, "I'm gonna hit this hip," and there was a crowd that started to form, and everyone was just hitting this hip.
Yep.
So that was really cool.
Yep. That is the fun part about having it right there next to the terrain park, is just that one more added element of the snowboard culture. It's like you got the jumps right here and the rails right here, and so you got the race guys racing, but the freestyle guys jumping, and a lot of the guys are the same guys. You know, they're racing and throwing their backflips or whatever. So yeah, that's what's fun about it, is it can be real competitive. We've got guys coming from all over the Northwest now. A handful of guys came out of Canada and kind of cleaned house on us this last year. I think 3 of the winners were out of this one crew that came down from Canada.
Saw that.
So yeah, us locals have some work to do for next year.
For year 10.
Yep. But yeah, that's what's fun about it, is it can be real competitive. You can be the guy out there that's shooting for that top spot because you want to go race Dirksen Derby, like you mentioned earlier. We're a Dirksen Derby qualifier. The Dirksen Derby is down at Mount Bachelor in Bend, Oregon, and they're, as far as I know, the second biggest bank slalom in the world.
Yeah.
Behind the Baker Bank Slalom. So
yeah.
The bank slalom thing is kind of a Northwest thing, or at least that's where it started, was here in the Northwest. The Dirksen Derby, they do north of 600 snowboarders through the weekend for that race. It's lottery or invite or qualify to get into that race or the Baker Bank Slalom. So it's not like you can just sign up. You can sign up in a lottery, hopefully get drawn. You can win your spot through a feeder race like ours, or you can qualify through invite. You know, they have a certain amount of invites that they invite people, or you can qualify for the next year. If you do well enough, you qualify to come back the next year. So yeah, as far as our race goes, you could be the guy trying to get that spot, that top spot to go down there and race, or you could just be the guy that's trying to, beat your buddy.
Yeah.
And you guys are having beers in the line, and you're waiting to go, and you just want to beat him, and he just wants to beat you.
No doubt.
So yeah, that's what's fun. Is it's just 150 of the local snowboarders, and now guys from outside the area coming in to fly down the mountain as fast as they can.
Yeah, I like it because it's just like holding your edge, carving down the mountain, essentially.
Yep.
You need to be able to do that to get down these bank slaloms, and yeah, it is a Pacific Northwest thing. We love our bank slaloms up here. It's a whole vibe at every one that I've been to, especially the Dougie Fresh. I think I raced 3 years ago. I did back-to-back seasons, and it was just a party. Because you're hanging out in line. What else are you gonna do? You're just gonna have some beers with your friends probably, and
everybody's just having a great time.
Yeah.
And then, not to mention the actual party, the after party.
Oh yeah.
We throw a pretty insane party in the lodge.
Retro themed, right?
Yeah, we've done it like a retro ski prom. So you wear your retro ski stuff. You bring your prom date. we've had the Rub, which is a local kind of famous band from the Coeur d'Alene area. We've had them up there. I think maybe the last 3 years we've had the Rub.
Is what it's done before.
All right. Okay.
Yep.
Sweet. So
Sweet. No
oh
worries.
yeah, it has. Yeah, it's gone up to 17 minutes now.
There we go. So
there we go.
yeah.
Get a little bit more.
There we go.
There
I
you
think,
go.
and I think that's probably like about the amount of time that we'll keep
Yeah.
going. Yeah.
Nice.
Sweet. All right. Cool, dude. Yeah, like we were talking about, social media. It's like, people that don't have as much skill or, but are like good people and are smart about like technology and stuff. Like it seems like it's really awesome to see everything blossom and then more jobs opening up in the industry part too. Like I feel like there's all the technology of skis and snowboards nowadays require more positions and engineers and stuff like that. So
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an engineering process to build a ski or a snowboard. I've been lucky to kind of cruise to a few of the factories in my time to see them build some snow. I actually got to build my own snowboard in the Burton factory over in Vermont. That was a really cool opportunity. I won this trip over there. It was a kind of a sales thing. We won a trip to Whitefish. We went snowboarding with a bunch of guys from Burton, and then got invited out to Vermont to tour the factory and go to, they called it the Fall Bash. It was like a kickoff to the season every year that Jake Burton would throw a big party at his house. Everybody in the industry is there, all the pros, all the brand owners, and all the snowboarders at this huge party at Jake's house. So I got to go out there, but the day before the party, I got to build a snowboard. We were doing a tour with a handful of other shop guys from around the country and Canada, and we were doing a tour through the factory. And one of the factory manager guys, he must have grabbed Dave Downing, which is old school pro snowboarder. He must have told Dave like, "Hey, I'll help a couple of these guys build some snowboards." So Dave came over. We were kind of like on this group kind of tour thing, going through the factory and they have a little snowboard museum. He came over and he grabbed me and this other guy, Jaron, kid from Seattle. He's like, "Hey, you guys want to build some snowboards real quick in the factory?" Yeah, dude, you kidding me? So Dave pulled us aside and hooked us up with a couple of other board builders, and they just, a guy just kind of stood over my shoulder and walked me through the whole process of building it was a Burton trick pony, and it took us about an hour and a half.
Wow.
Start to finish, and built it, and I still have it. I ride it. I haven't ridden it in a while, but yeah, it's pretty cool to have one that you built yourself.
Yeah, that's
in the Burton factory.
That's a memory you're never gonna forget. Man,
So,
that's cool.
Yeah, a lot goes into the process of building one, but even more, I would say, goes into dreaming one up and coming up with perfecting it, making it ride the way that they want it to. A lot of R&D, a lot of tweaks, a lot of changing of materials and shapes and things like that before they get something where they want it.
I mean, yeah, and you look around this room, everything's different, and
right,
people
they
have
all
their
ride
own
differently.
styles. We got all the big brands around us. We got LibTech Earboard, and then we got my Grassroots. I mean, that's habitual. A friend of mine pressed that board at Mount Hood for me.
Right.
Yeah, so it's like, and then recently had a chat with another friend of mine, Ian Barker, and he's made his own snowboards. Ever since he went up and worked at a snowboard core factory in Seattle a while ago, and now he works for another Grassroots out of Bend called Snowplanks and presses boards for them.
Yeah, I know them. My local guy from here, Randall Seaton, rides for Snowplanks.
Randall Seaton, okay,
Yeah,
yep,
he's a local dude. His brother's married to my cousin, actually.
No way, dude.
Yeah,
That's a small world.
Randall's the man. Randall was on the Ski Shack team here with me in probably 2004 and 2005 when we were like juniors and seniors in high school. We used to have a high school team back then, and Randall was like the one kid from the valley. He grew up in Kellogg. He was a
Oh, okay.
silver local.
Yeah.
So he was like the kid that we didn't know as well because we were all from the Coeur d'Alene area. So he, he made the team, and he's a really good snowboarder.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he was the best on that team for
Yeah.
sure. He is, yeah. But yeah, he's down there in Bend riding for snowplanks.
Yeah. And it's like, it's funny. It's like Salt Lake and Bend right now. It's like, I feel like a lot of people are moving to those places, but they also have the local homegrown talent coming out of both of those places right now, which is awesome to see. And now you kind of see it up here too, like we talked about, Viz coming out of Spokane, and that's big. But yeah, dude, man, that's crazy. I can't believe, like, I think Ian works with him at Snowplanks, and then he's ridden with him quite a few times. The Pete Alport spring camp out happens every June 1st out there. And
I've heard of that.
Yeah, Pete's like a pretty famous local photographer, backcountry guy. Has filmed them all and photographed them all. And so I've seen Randall out there, amongst the other Bend big timers.
Yeah.
They go out and build a couple cheese wedges. I think they built a quarter pipe last year, so pretty cool. But yeah, it was funny talking to him, Pete. He used to work with Poor Boy Productions.
Yeah.
You remember those guys?
They used to come up for Schweitzer every spring.
So he talked about coming up here with them. He was basically like one of their heads of videography and stuff. But yeah, he's coming up to Schweitzer and making the big jumps and shaping and doing that cool stuff. That's awesome. Small world, man. Yeah, dude. So let's talk a little bit about like what you got going on right now. You got Ski Shack in the winters. Run things here along with Julie. But did you also, how long ago was it that you started, your own business? You kind of repair and install docks, around the lakes up here.
Yeah. I think probably 5 years now that I've had the business and working like full time on the business. Before that, I was kind of coaching like some wakeboarding and wake surfing and stuff like that in the summertime.
Oh yeah. I remember I asked you who the biggest celebrity was last time we talked.
Oh yeah.
J-Lo and A-Rod.
Yep, I took J-Lo surfing out there. But yeah, so that was the summer gig, was coaching surfing, coaching wakeboarding, but yeah, kind of transitioned into building and repairing docks on the lake.
Yeah.
Now I've got a small company, just a couple boats, a couple trucks, and yeah, we just build docks and repair them, float them. It's nice. I mean, it works out great for running a ski shop because
seasonal.
Timing works great. I can, as soon as I'm getting sick of being in this building all winter long, it's like time to roll out into to the outside and get in the water and get on the lake. And then towards the end of the summer, August, and it's super hot and I'm like ready to get off the lake because I'm all sunburned and just over being on the water every day. And then it's like time to get back in here into the air conditioning and talking to customers about snowboards again. So I like working seasonally. I don't get burnt out on doing the same thing every single day, year after year. Get to switch it up every 6 months and kind of change gears.
Yeah, so I would say you and I have that in common.
Yeah.
I guide fly fishing in the summers,
right?
And then won't be working again at the mountain, but I'll be back.
Yeah,
with snowboarding. I guess technically I'll be working. I'll be doing a lot more filming and stuff this coming season, and focusing on this right here, the podcast, and got some things in the works, which is cool. But dude, let's talk a little bit. Let's lean into some hot takes. I wanted to know like what's like your morning routine. How has that evolved as far as like going up to the mountain? Like what do you go through? Because a lot of people do yoga and stuff like that, but what's your routine in the morning when you're heading up to shred?
I mean, yeah, it definitely has evolved to where, in my 20s, it was wake up and might even still have my snowboard boots on from the party the night before and, roll out to the, up to the mountain with the buddies at whatever was clever. It might even be after lunch by the time you get up there.
Yeah.
But anymore. I mean, I guess it depends on what morning it is. If it's a morning with the kids, then it's usually I don't try to necessarily get up there till after lunch if I'm taking the kids, because it's the process to get them up there, get the whole thing going. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a lot better at it than what you see like the typical dad dragging his family up the hill. You know, because I've been on the hill so much my whole life and am used to being there, and
You understand it's hard.
right, I understand kind of a lot of what's going on versus, you know, the guy dragging all the gear. But so yeah, I'm trying to make it as quick and easy as I can. So I get up there after lunch with them and just bang out a few runs and get out of there.
Yeah.
But for myself, if I'm going out with the buddies, it's usually like, you know, if we're going split boarding somewhere, it's making a game plan the day before. You know, we're checking the weather. You know, is it going to snow? What has the weather been doing? We're checking the avalanche forecasts, that kind of thing the day before or the evening before. You know, we might be checking a couple different zones to see what might be safest or what might have the best snow, whether we're going up towards Schweitzer or out towards the valley, towards Silver and Lookout. So kind of figuring out the zone that might be the safest or have the best snow. Figuring all of that out beforehand, you know, really like this is the aspect that we're going to ride. You know, we're going to, you know, pick something that's, you know, north facing, or, you know, the southeast facing is the stuff we're definitely going to not be on. That's the dangerous stuff or whatever. Identifying those, you know, hazards, you know, beforehand and knowing your aspects. So kind of planning all that out a little bit with, you know, the next most competent guy that I'm going with.
Yeah.
Or might be much more competent than me, that, you know, whoever that is. So yeah, kind of getting that plan figured out, and then, you know, setting usually a pretty early time to meet up. You know, I like to be at the trailhead by, you know, just after it starts getting light. In some cases, we'll, you know, if we have a long hike in, we'll be going in the dark. But yeah, I like to get out there, do it early. I like anymore, the guys I'm going with out in the backcountry are, you know, guys that are going to be up and ready on time.
Yeah.
You know, I'll pick somebody up at their house or vice versa, and we'll head out. We might take 2 rigs if there's 4 of us or something going, or 5, but so yeah, usually kind of getting that plan going the night before, meet up early somewhere and head out. As far as like resort days, if I'm going up, say it's going to be a good powder day and I'm going to go ride Schweitzer, and I know that it's going to be a good powder day, I'm going to wake up early. I'm probably not going to ride with, as far as in the car with anybody else, just drive myself, because I have like an anxiety of that other person not being ready and not being there on time. And like, if we're not there on time, then we're not getting in the lift line, and then we're behind, and then we're not getting to the right powder spots. And like, I've got this weird thing about that. So I've been burned by just like most of my friends, but them being a handful of minutes later or whatever. And I'm just like, all right, dude, well, I'll see you there. I'll see you in the lift line.
I also need the option to leave when I want to leave.
Yeah, exactly. And now when I have kids, I've got to go and pick them up or do whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got to have the option to leave when I want, but more so I've got to not be waiting on anybody in the morning.
Right.
So yeah, I like to just be up early. I mean, I can barely sleep if I know it's going to be a really good day. So yeah, up early, stretching, getting some breakfast, do the stretch, and, you know, drive up to the mountain. I like to be there plenty early, enough time to get in the lift line and stretch again, you know, have some coffee, be standing there in the lift line for might be 40 minutes or so to be close to the front. You know, at Schweitzer, like I said, we talked about a powder day at Silver. It's a little easier because you can, you know, there's 20 powder hounds that show up to Silver, you know, that are going to be waiting in line. At Schweitzer, it might be a couple hundred on a good day. It might be a couple hundred guys that are going to stand there for an hour.
Yeah.
So, and if it's the weekend, then it might be more. So definitely knowing where I'm going to go and what kind of line and what kind of crowd I'm going to run into. And yeah, but early, unless I'm with my kids, then it's like an afternoon thing.
Cool. Nice. All right, let's get into some rapid fire.
Mm-hmm.
All right. If you had one person to take to one backcountry trip, who would you take and where would you go?
I would say it would have to be to Baldface with my son.
Okay.
Baldface cat skiing operation up in British Columbia. And yeah, bucket list would be that to take my son there when he's old enough to shred some pow and to keep up. So that's probably another 8 to 10 years out.
Yep.
Or so.
Yep. And try and get in on the list. That's
right.
Pretty long trying to go up there. But yeah, maybe pull some strings. Who knows?
Yeah. And there's other really good cat skiing operations
all over. Yeah.
All over the place. There's
British Columbia, of course. And
right. There's one over in Montana called Great Northern Powder Guides. And I've been there a couple times and I've heard people refer to it. I've never been to Baldface, obviously, but I've heard people say it's like the poor man's Baldface.
Okay.
Who knows if I ever will. It's similar. It's Montana style. It's not, quite as expensive, and they don't have all the crazy rules and restrictions. It's like, let's just go skiing, Montana style.
All right, man. Okay, let's go with rapid fire. Pants or bibs?
Bibs.
Goggles or glasses?
Goggles.
3 favorite snowboarders?
Ooh, I'd have to say Travis Rice, just because of all the cool, awesome things he's done with the different videos and the natural selection and the ultra natural and all the events that he's put on. He's the man. His snowboard, I've sold more Orcas, I guess, than any other single snowboard ever. So we've made some money off of his branding. So he's the man. Jeremy Jones with Jones Snowboards is the man. He's kind of the split boarder guy. He's been doing it forever. So he's the guy to look up to as far as still being an awesome split boarder when you're in your 50s.
Yeah.
That's definitely something I aspire to do, is to be able to shred hard and still climb mountains in my 50s. So yeah, Jeremy Jones. And then I would say, you asked me this one last time, so I had it kind of preloaded, but my buddy Chad Warren.
That's right.
Local guy who was a handful of years older than me, was just kind of that guy to look up to in the local scene that, he was showing me and my friends around, showing us how to hit the jumps, how to hit the rails, how to do a 540, taking us up in his van and getting us to the hill, and just being that cool guy who, he had springs for legs, so he's always going like way bigger and further than everybody else, and he was just the local dude who was the best snowboarder, but also like just a really nice guy who was down to help out the younger kids.
Definitely know him. He used to be a neighbor of mine.
Yeah, he's still in the area. Yeah. Going back to the question you asked me earlier, asking about the most underrated snowboarder in the area. Guys like him, dude. There's guys like that are like rad dads now that can still just send it. Yeah, that are like really, really good. I've got a handful of buddies that are really impressive skiers or snowboarders that are in their 40s.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, very cool, man. Well, once again, dude, thanks for letting us, chat. Thanks for letting us come to the ski shack and set up, and hopefully we'll be doing more and more from here with some awesome guests. Maybe get some group chats going. Yeah,
I'm down to sit in anytime.
All right, man. Well, thank you again. And with that, that's been another episode of Let's Talk Snowboarding. Big news. We're going to be coming at you every single Friday, 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time with a new episode. And with that, thanks to Rhen. Thanks to Jess.
Thank
for
you guys.
producing today, and appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
All right.
Very cool.
Awesome.
That
Sweet.
is a wrap.
Woo!